President Biden someday be charged with unlawfully inducing immigrants to enter the country illegally for his border policies.
Another thing that I really don't like about this argument, and I feel like Esports Batman said this might be what it gets kicked back to the courts on, and I hate this because I feel like I know how it's going to go. Another thing that I really don't like about this argument is let's think about what was just said. Okay, what were the three examples that were brought up? We have Obama drone striking American citizens in other countries. We've got Bush lying to the American public to go to war in Iraq. And we've got Joe Biden inviting illegal immigrants to come to the country, okay? One thing, this argument gets brought up a lot, that future politicians and future presidents might be held to account for actions that they take politically. But one thing I don't like about that argument is that when we look at these three actions, all of these seem to be pretty clearly like a president operating in the capacity as the president of the United States. Donald Trump's actions, I think, are clearly more self-serving. I think we get into a clearly different type of thing. That when we are personally invested in things of voter fraud, when we are personally invested in things relating to like Zelensky and op-ed research, I think that in this capacity, I think that Donald Trump is not clearly acting in the capacity as the chief executive, more so that he's acting in the capacity of somebody running for office again and trying to secure his future election. Now, the arguments against this is, okay, well, how can you ever clearly tell, right? Like, what if George Bush, so we can go through each of these, what if Obama thought that he needed to strike that American citizen because he, the Obama one is really hard to do. We won't think of that. For the Bush one, what if the reason why Bush lied to the American public because he wanted to go to war in Iraq was because he wanted to win re-election? He thought that a wartime president, more likely to get reelected. He wasn't sure if he'd win without it. So he did that largely to secure a re-election, right? So maybe Bush is doing it for personal reasons. Or what if Joe Biden is inviting legal immigrants, not acting in the capacity as the president of the United States, but what if he's doing that because he thinks that he genuinely believes that having more of these people in his country will win him more favor of the citizens, and now he'll get reelected, right? So these are two examples where, well, you say that it's so clear that the president is operating in the capacity of the president, that he's doing things for the American public, but it might just be self-serving, right? And then much the same on the bottom, we could say, okay, well, Donald Trump being invested in voter fraud, I mean, if voter fraud is actually happening, why would you not want that investigated for the bettering of the American people? This isn't Donald Trump acting selfishly. This is him protecting our election system, which is arguably one of the most important jobs of the entire system itself, to maintain the credibility of it. And in terms of Zelensky and doing research into, potential corruption of politicians' children, why would this not be something that the United States president would be, chiefed with doing? He has the ability to negotiate with and communicate with foreign leaders. Why would he not make this request? That could be done in the capacity as president as well. Now, the Esports Batman spoiled and said that apparently it looks like the court might kick it back to the lower courts and force them to deal with that question. Meaning maybe they're going to have to decide then, what does it mean to act in the capacity as president versus acting personally? But that's almost impossible. That's going to be an almost impossible thing to actually delineate. Or it would have to be something that would be decided on a case-by-case basis in court, right? So, but we'll see how this gets brought up.
The hypothetical that we can see that could well be an official act.
It could, and why? Because he's doing it for personal reasons. He's not doing it like President Obama is alleged to have done it, to protect the country from a terrorist.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So for the things that I had written down earlier, so she's hitting on these and it feels to me like these three actions that were brought up as examples, like Obama drone striking someone, they seem to be of a far different nature than Trump's actions. It's hard to argue, how could Obama drone striking somebody, how could that be self-serving? That's why I didn't even try to think of like an example, unless he thought the guy was going to run against him for president or something, right? But yeah, it seems like these are fundamentally different in nature.
He's doing it for personal gain. And isn't that the nature of the allegations here? That he's not doing these acts
as a president
in furtherance of an official responsibility. He's doing it for personal gain.
I agree with that characterization of the indictment, and that confirms immunity, because the characterization is that there's a series of official acts that were done for an unlawful.
No, because
or improper
immunity says even if you did it for personal gain, we won't hold you responsible. How could that be?
That's an extremely strong doctrine in this court's case law in cases like Fitzgerald.